Hello everyone. Today I will be installing the Bavsound subwoofer in the G20 3 series. I had previously done that on the G05 X5. Now I've gotten, because the results were so good, I've decided to get it into my G20 as well. I do have the speakers already installed in the car already. So now the last part of it is to actually get the subwoofer installed. Now, in order to do that, I've actually started the process of taking part of the seat out already. But essentially, we have to remove the 4 bolts in the car, 2 in the front and 2 in the back, right? So here I go. Not a professional doing this, and I don't have any professional or any camera gear other than my phone and holding it in my hand. So just bear with me. So let's do some of this, and then we will then go ahead and also remove this last one as well. So nothing exciting, just getting the seats out. We'll be right back. And now that the bolts are all out, the seat is going to kind of lean back. So, if you have your seat a little bit reclined, what it will do is it'll just, rest on the back seat. Now, if you follow the instructions from Bavsound, you can go ahead and maybe try to secure the seat by tying the seat belt, if you will, around it, just looping it around so that way it doesn't move on you. So at this point, we are ready to take this out. So I'm using the T25 bit to slowly unscrew all of this. I guess I could have used a longer a screwdriver type handheld, but the concern is I might not have enough clearance in these in order to do that. So, but anyways, put it on there. Let's go ahead and remove it. So we've got 4 screws to do. Let me get it done and we'll be right back. Now that the screws are out, we're gonna have to take this piece out. It comes right off, okay? And from the looks of it, I think we've got a bolt here, another bolt here, another bolt here. Actually, no, that's actually the screw right there. So there's the bolt right here. And so we've got 2 bolts, one here and one here we need to remove. Disconnect it right here. And then you got 2 clips at the end over here, which is kind of hard to see, but you'll see it when I try to pull it out in the next portion of the video. Well, it looks like I just got it out. Now I have to go remove this subwoofer out of the case, but one of the things I wanted to show is you've got this clip at the back, and what helped me get it released was I used this, you need a screwdriver or something. If you can see this right here, there's a little notch, there's a little clip, right? And that keeps the cable in place. So the moment I pulled it in, right, that's when it released it. It allowed me to, continue to pull it out, if you will. And not to mention, earlier I mentioned there were some clips in here. Let me kind of go, there's a cable in here. If you can kind of see, it's clipped on to the end. There's one more on this other side, and I don't know whether you can see it, but it's part of this cable harness. And what happens is it gets clipped on to here and here, right? And so you need to unclip it. And what I did was, with the cable still in it, the plug-in, I use this to kind of, you know, pry it out, if you will. And that's how I was able to free up the sub. So now what we have to do is we have to you know, get the heat gun going, I suppose, to take this, you know, bad boy out. Now, there's no real easy way of doing this, and the disclaimer I have is we are likely going to destroy this thing. I know in the video they do it, you know, so effortlessly with a heat gun, but with this we will likely end up destroying it. Or at least I did with my X5. You know, I had no intentions of trying to resell it, so it wasn't, you know, that big of a deal. And plus, it's hard to resell something when you're not selling it with the entire harness, right? Which is how this piece is actually ordered. But from what I can see, though, in my last experience, is, you know, you may end up breaking one of these. Don't sweat it. The key thing is you don't want to break the general housing, right? Because you need this to go back in place. Because what you can do is, once you put the other piece on, and if the screws, you know, in the X5, the screws didn't work as well, but hopefully it'll work much better here. But in the X5, there's also there's also another two pieces that kind of hold, you know, you screw on top of to keep it in place. It wasn't that big of a deal. But you know, whatever it is, I think we can improvise if you know, if things, you know, don't kind of work out. And so yeah, without further ado, I'm gonna go, you know, try to remove this. So one thing to kind of take note of is that sometimes it's a little bit hard to figure out what's actually coming out and what's not. Because if you kind of look at this and you say to yourself, well, that's part of the clip, right, to hold it in. No, that's actually part of the subwoofer itself that we're removing. This is part of the clip. This is part of the, housing. This is part of the housing. But these little right here are actually part of the subwoofer itself. So don't waste just trying to pry them out, because it would actually ultimately end up in vain. You will end up, you know, just removing this cover of the subwoofer, which I actually did when I was trying to move it out of the X5, if you will. So now what I'm going to do is apply heat around, and then with a little bit of luck, I'll be able to pry this thing out. So what I'm doing now is I'm applying the heat around it. I got kind of have the clips dislodged already, as you can kind of see at this section right here. That might be my entry point to try to start prying stuff out. And then of course, you know, this connector over here up, you know, to the sub, you know, where we want to connect the subwoofer. So oops, I think I just caused it to pop right back in. But yeah, so basically I'm gonna keep on going round and round with this thing. Hopefully make it nice and gooey. And I'm gonna do it on the other side as well. But I'll be back once I'm able to pry this thing out, and I'll be able to show you what it looks like. Real quick, before I pry this thing out, what I actually did, a little trick is, you know, where these clips are that hold it in, I actually kind of pried underneath here to kind of get the glue loose. So that might be a good tip for you guys. Well, what do you know, guys? I actually took this thing out this time without destroying it like I did in the X5. Seems like I might have found a trick to do this. And like I said, hang on, let me kind of put this thing back real quick. As you can well see, right, when this thing goes in here, it's being held by these clips right here. So if you loosen the glue up enough, then what happens is you just pry underneath it. These would be your entry points to go in without actually breaking anything. So I gotta say, I guess second time's a charm, or third time, because this would be the third sub I'm doing. So here I'm wrapped the Bavsound sub. So what's gonna happen is it's just gonna flow right in over here and go in, right? Now, here's the thing, right? It's not the same size as as the other, the OEM sub. So these clips, if you will, aren't going to hold it in. Now in the X5, if you didn't use these screws, it wouldn't have mattered at all, because there would be a plastic cover that you would be able to kind of bend to your will and screw it down. So with this, what's happened is, Bavsound has provided these screws for us to actually screw it in. Just don't get over crazy to do an overscrew, because then you might just break the housing. Then now you got to put some super glue or something, just kind of hold it together. But look, I think we're on our way to getting this completed. All right, so now that I have everything back in place, screws and whatnot, it's time to put this thing back. Now this will be a tight fit. Just be a little bit patient. Remember, don't forget to connect these two connectors back, these, for the cable harness. But yeah, let me work on getting it back. All in all, the process has taken me so far about half an hour. So it took a little maneuvering to get it back in there, but it's finally back in. I know it's hard to see, but got the connector back on over here. The two clips I was referring to earlier for the cable harness, and now it's back in. So all I have to do now is screw these bolts back on, test it real quick, put the seat back. All right, so I put all the bolts back together already, and the carpet's back on. So the last part to do is make sure the carpet is all aligned and nice, nicely flush. And then the last part is to screw this in. But before I do that, I'm going to test this thing out to make sure, well, there's some sound coming out of it. Once the sound is done, I will put this back, put the bolts back for the wheels. Just do a gentle snug first, and then I'll go through with the torque wrench in about 40-45 pounds. And that should finish up this side. All right, I actually took the driver's seat sub out already. I just kind of skipped through the video of going through the whole heating gun process and whatnot. This was actually a little bit tougher, as you can see. I kind of wedged the screwdriver a little bit harder on both sides to kind of pull it out. Nevertheless, same principle as the previous one, where you kind of use these as your entry points to pull it out. Now, one thing to note that's different from the driver's seat, as compared to the passenger seat, is that these little holes here, which was supposed to have been used as a cable guide, well, there's no cable. You don't have to worry about that. So the only thing you have to worry about is the bolt. Take these two bolts out, essentially the whole thing comes right out. So now over here, I'm gonna put this in, as you can see. Now, one of the things is I did improvise a little bit that I didn't show on the last video, is that these screws here, I didn't opt to use these screws. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe it's just there to hold in place. But what I was finding was it just popped out very easily with it. And so I just got equivalent screws, if you will, that had thread all the way to the end to kind of hold it in place. But that was the slight modification that I did. Now, this is no way endorsed by Bavsound or anything like that. This is just me, working on the fly, if you will, as to what I think might, actually do better. So with that, I'm going to get these 4 screws in, and then we'll get it installed outside. All right, so everything's been screwed back in. Now we're ready to put it back all together. This one is going to be a tight fit. I don't know whether it's me or for some reason it just felt a little bit tougher to get out. But nevertheless, we will have to get it back in here. If I don't want my car to be, one subwoofer less. All right, so I finally put it all together. Definitely worth the hassle. The subwoofers took me about 45 minutes total to complete. I think, if you kind of, put out an hour, if you will, that should be more than sufficient time. And then the speakers, if you will, took me about an hour and a half total. So for 2.5-3 hours worth of work, you could get yourself, you know, a nice set of tunes, if you will, because the BMW Hi-Fi, or you know, or Lo-Fi as I call it, as well as the HK sound, does not compare to this. Because in my G05, I had the HK sound, and I replaced it, and it was significant improvement. And of course, you know, the Hi-Fi was replaced, and I don't know what other word to describe, you know, significant +1 improvement. So definitely worth the change. All right. If you guys have any questions, just let me know.